You're listening to A Slice of Therapy with me, Alun Parry. Now, if you're a regular listener to this podcast, you might remember me mentioning that I fixed my dishwasher. And this was a great achievement for me in particular because that's not really my forte, doing that kind of thing. And yet I did it. I looked on YouTube, I found out what was going wrong. And prior to doing that, because it wasn't an area that I had a great deal of confidence in, I'd left my dishwasher broke, for months, maybe a good 2 or 3 months. And then I decided that I was going to address the problem. And I fixed the dishwasher. I took the side off, I figured out what the tubes were doing, I found the clog, and it was all fixed. Wonderful. Now, the dishwasher had been a real topic of conversation for some time. This kind of unopened cycle that I had going on, this problem that I had to solve and wasn't really addressing and wasn't turning to. And so it was quite the topic of conversation. I'm not sure it was a very interesting topic of conversation, but nonetheless, it was one of the things that I would sometimes talk about. And then, of course, hallelujah, I fixed it. Now, about a month after fixing it, I was having a conversation with my mum and she said to me, "So how's your dishwasher doing?" Now, the reason that she was asking me this was she was basically saying, is everything still working okay? But when she said to me, "How's your dishwasher doing?" I know that I looked at her with a completely puzzled look. It was as if she was an alien with 2 heads and she'd just landed. And I looked at her completely bemused. And I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean, how's my dishwasher?" And she said, "Well, your dishwasher was broken." And I said, "Yeah, but that was ages ago." Now, I'd forgotten that this was a problem. And this is why I looked at her so perplexed. Something that had bothered me for about 3 months. On a daily basis, I have to add. Suddenly now it seems strange that somebody was asking me about this at all. And the reason why I mention this is because it's a good metaphor, really, for how change happens and how we respond to change. Change, once we've lived it for a little bit, it becomes quite perplexing when we look back and see our previous selves. Even the previous self of me with a broken dishwasher, even that seemed perplexing. Why on earth am I being asked about my dishwasher, I thought. And yet it was a perfectly logical question, wasn't it? It's just that once we change, it actually becomes puzzling to us. And we lose connection with the fact that we were ever in that situation. And I see this a lot with my clients. And it's really fun. It's a part of my job that I really enjoy. Because what I'm looking to do is to create transformational change, to help create it. Because it always comes from the client, crucially. But that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the person that I'm working with to undergo a transformational change. And so sometimes they might have brought in a particular pattern of behaviour, that's getting in their way in life, and we work on it, and we try and create something different for them. And then there'll be a few little kind of milestones along the way which show that the change is underway. And so there'll be a kind of thing that they will tell me, at some point during our conversation, maybe a few sessions down the line, where they'll describe the very thing that previously they could never do. They might have started by saying, I don't know, a very common one, for instance, is even when I need help, I find that I never reach out for it. And then they're chatting away and they're talking about all the help that they got in this situation. They phoned their friend up and they got them involved in order to help out. And of course, I will always go, "Oh, wow, that's pretty incredible, then, isn't it?" So you actually sought out and reached out to get the help that you deserve. And they look at me like I looked at my mum when she asked about the dishwasher, with that kind of puzzled look, like I'm the alien with the two heads. And they'll say, well, yeah. And then I have to remind that, the reason why I'm asking that is because that's the very thing that you wanted to achieve. Look at the progress that you've made here. How impressive are you? Is basically what I'm saying. And yet it's lovely when that happens, when I get the quizzical look and the little turn of the head that basically says, well, I don't know what you're talking about. Why would you even be asking me about this? Which is exactly how I was with the dishwasher. Now, this is what happens with change. People say that change is slow, but it's not really. Change is quick, and the changes that we make embed very quickly. You see, sometimes I will say to the person, well, how on earth did you do that? How on earth were you able to kind of reach out to friends? And they say, well, I don't know. I just did it. And this is another wonderful sign of change embedding. It was just kind of, well, it's just what you do. It's a very kind of automatic thing. And I love that too, because it's very similar to whenever you learn something. So I don't know if you can drive or not, but I remember the process of learning to drive. First, it was all, oh my God, I don't know what I don't know. And then I was starting to get a hang of things, but I had to be very, very focused on it. Same when you're learning a musical instrument as well. So I play the guitar. And initially it's like, oh, how on earth do my fingers go into that shape? And I would then know where they had to go, but I would have to really monitor my fingers very closely. And now I'm at the point where, my fingers just move on the fretboard however they want. And so that kind of transition from being in part one, where you're at the beginning of the journey, and then being in the midst of the journey where things are improving, and then to that point where it becomes second nature and you don't even think about it, is another lovely marker of change that I really enjoy. And so I just wanted to share that with you, because you've probably experienced this in moments of your life yourself, where the change has happened to such an extent that if somebody referred to it, you forget where you were. And it's the same for me. I remember some of my personal journeys where I've worked through stuff, and it seems strange to look back at myself now and think of some of the things that would just routinely get in my way back then. And yet I wouldn't even think of following that pattern today. It has to be people close to me who would do what I do with the people I work with and say, well, you wouldn't have done that 4 years ago, or you wouldn't have done that 10 years ago. You'd have you'd have done that differently. You'd have gotten your own way. And I'll think back and go, would I? And it's only with the jog of the memory I think, actually, they're right, I would. I've really come a long way myself here. And so we're all part of this wonderful journey of improvement and change and transformation. And the wonderful thing about that, which is why I love my work so much, is that when we transform, it's almost like we forget that previous part of us. It's like we forget that the dishwasher hadn't worked for 3 months. We forget that we're not reaching out to our friends and getting the help that we deserve. We forget the way we were because we've become so embedded in the transformation, the changed version of ourselves, that is the new second nature. And so just to do a quick summary there, I told you that little anecdote at the beginning about my dishwasher and being completely perplexed when asked about it a month after it was fixed. And that I see this all the time in my therapy work. as people change and I try and draw their attention to just how impressive they've been, I get that puzzled look too. I get that puzzled look that says, I don't really know what you're on about. Why are you asking me about that? Because I'm totally different now. And it's a wonderful aspect of the work. And the other thing that we looked at is that sense of moving into autopilot with these changes that we make. So that we just do things second nature, just like playing a guitar, just like driving a car once you've learned how to drive it. And so change is not only possible, but it can be transformational as well, to such an extent that it will perplex you when you think back to how things were before you've done that work. So if you like this episode, please do share it. And if you'd like to work with me directly, I'm Alun Parry. You can find me at liverpoolpsychotherapy.co.uk. But of course, I work online, so you don't have to be local at all. You can be from anywhere. And subscribe to the podcast because it's free and it means that you'll never miss an episode again. So thanks for listening, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another one.